When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. That's what surprised me the most. There was no earthquake in my heart. No sudden storm of tears. Just a quiet, simple thought. Ah, so this is how it ends. I looked at her face, so young, so sure of herself. She stood in the doorway of the home I had helped to build. The home where I had rocked my son to sleep decades ago. And now, she was telling me my time in it was over. I didn't argue. I didn't remind her of the years. I just nodded slowly. And I smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile you give when you finally understand a joke that was on you all along. A joke told over 28 years. I went to my small room, the one they called Nana's suite. It was really just the old sunroom, glass on 3 sides. I used to love the morning light here. Now it felt like a greenhouse. A place for plants, not for people. I sat on the edge of my bed. My fingers touched the worn quilt my own mother had stitched. And for the first time, I let myself whisper the words that had been circling in my mind for years. He praised his success, and never mentioned my sacrifices. My son. My brilliant, successful son. The one whose pictures filled my wallet long before smartphones existed. The one whose first word, framed in a little wooden block, still sat on my dresser. Mama. He said it with such a gummy grin. He said it 1,000 times. When did he stop? Music swells slightly, then recedes. Part 2. Setup. My name is Anya. I am 68 years old. For most of my life, I was just Mom. Then for a beautiful, fleeting year, I was a wife. And then, for a much longer, lonelier stretch, I was a widow and a mother all at once. My world shrank to the size of one small boy with wide, curious eyes. His name is David. My David. He was 4 when his father, my Michael, was taken from us. A sudden, silent thing in the night. A heart that just stopped. Our world, which had been all laughter and future plans, turned gray and fragile overnight. I had to be 2 parents. I worked 2 jobs. One as a secretary in a dusty law office during the day. Another as a seamstress in our tiny apartment at night. My fingers would ache from typing, then ache again from guiding fabric under the needle's flash. The hum of the sewing machine was our nighttime lullaby. But for David, I tried to make magic. I saved for months to buy him a telescope for his 10th birthday because he loved the stars. We couldn't afford a car, so we took long bus rides to the free museum on Sundays. I packed our lunches, sandwiches, and a single, shared apple. He would lean his head against my arm on the bus ride home, tired and happy. That weight against me was my entire purpose. I remember one evening he was maybe 12. He was struggling with his math homework. Fractions. His face was scrunched up in frustration, close to tears. I sat beside him. I wasn't good at math. I never finished school myself. But I took the pencil. Let's just look at it together, I said. 1 piece at a time. We worked for an hour. 2 hours. The apartment was quiet except for the scratch of pencil on paper. When he finally understood, when his eyes lit up with that click of understanding, he threw his arms around my neck. "You're the smartest mom in the world," he whispered. I wasn't. But in that moment I felt like I was. That was my treasure. That was my success. His smile. His relief. His belief that I could fix anything. I scrimped and saved for his education. Every dress I didn't buy, every meal out I skipped, every holiday we spent having an adventure at home, it all went into a dusty college fund envelope in my bottom drawer. I dreamed of him wearing a cap and gown. I dreamed of him being free from the worry that had haunted my life. I wanted his world to be bigger, brighter, safer than mine ever was. And he did it. Oh, he did it. He got into a good university. He got scholarships, too. He was so proud. I was so proud. The night before he left, we sat at our small kitchen table. The same table where we'd shared 1,000 meals. He held my hands. They looked so old in his young ones. Rough. Nodded. "Mom," he said, his voice thick. "I'm going to make you so proud. I'm going to build a life for us. A good life. You'll never have to work again. You'll never have to worry. I cried then. Tears of joy, of fear, of the sheer pain of letting him go. I believed him. Every word. That promise was the light I held onto during the long, quiet years that followed. The years of an empty apartment, of phone calls that grew shorter, of a life that felt like it was on pause, waiting for his next chapter to begin so mine could, too. His chapter began, and it was brilliant. He graduated with honors. He got a job in the city. A real career. He talked about projects and clients and promotions. His voice on the phone was faster, louder, filled with a new energy. My quiet, thoughtful boy was becoming a man of the world. Then he met Sophia. I remember the first time he brought her home to the old apartment. She was beautiful, of course. Sharp, stylish, with a laugh that was like crystal, clear and beautiful, but you were careful not to drop it. She was polite. She complimented my cooking, though she ate very little. She looked around our small living room, and I saw her eyes take in the faded sofa, the old photographs, the well-worn rug. She didn't say anything unkind, but she didn't have to. Her silence, in certain moments, was its own language. David was beaming. He was so in love. He held her hand as if she were made of the finest china. I wanted to be happy for him, and part of me was. But another part, a small, secret part, felt a cold little knot form in my stomach. It felt like I was being assessed and found lacking. They married a year later. It was a beautiful wedding. I sat in the front row, wearing a dress I'd sewn myself. It was lovely, but I could see the difference between it and the gowns of Sophia's family and friends. I was the quiet woman from the past. David gave a speech. A wonderful speech. He thanked his teachers, his mentors, his friends. He praised Sophia for making him a better man. He thanked her parents for welcoming him into their family. He looked right at me, smiled, and said, "And thanks to my mom for always being there." Always being there. It was true, but it sounded so small, so passive, like I was a piece of furniture, a comfortable chair he could always find in the same spot. He didn't say what I'd done. He didn't speak of the years of quiet labor, the loneliness I endured so he wouldn't feel poor, the dreams I folded up and put away in that same bottom drawer. The sacrifice was invisible. All he saw was the being there. After the wedding, things changed quickly. David and Sophia bought a house. A big, beautiful new-build house in a shiny suburb. It had a guest room. "Mom, you have to come live with us," David said, his arm around me. "The house is too big. We want you there. No more renting that old apartment. This is your home now, too." The promise from the kitchen table echoed. "You'll never have to worry again." I sold or gave away most of my things. The old furniture. The pots and pans. I brought my clothes, my photos, my mother's quilt, and my sewing machine. I arrived at their beautiful house with my life packed into a dozen boxes. It felt like a new beginning. At first, it was sweet. I helped unpack. I cooked familiar recipes. David would come home from work and say, Mom's famous soup. Nothing beats it." Sophia would smile, a tight little smile. She preferred salads, quinoa bowls. Food that was clean. My rich, hearty soups, the food of love and scarcity, suddenly seemed heavy, out of place. Small tensions are like dust. You don't notice a single speck, but let it gather, and soon everything feels grimy. It was the way she'd reorganized the kitchen after I'd cooked, putting my wooden spoon in a different drawer, wiping down counters I had just cleaned, as if my cleaning wasn't quite thorough. It was these suggestions. "Anya, at my mother's yoga group, they say sitting for too long is terrible for circulation. Maybe you should take a walk. Anya, that television program seems a bit sensational. There's a lovely documentary on the Nature Channel." It was the conversations at dinner. David would talk about his work, about a big deal he'd closed, a presentation he'd nailed. His eyes would shine. Sophia would listen, adoring. Then she'd turn to me. "And what did you do today, Anya?" What did I do? I folded laundry. I watched the birds at the feeder. I mended a tear in David's coat. I thought about Michael. I waited for them to come home. Oh, not much, I'd say. Just puttered around. She'd nod, a kind, pitying nod, as if my puttering was a cute, slightly sad hobby. The worst part was David. My David. He didn't see the dust gathering.
Or he chose not to.
When I tried once to mention that I felt a bit lost in the big house, he patted my shoulder. You'll get used to it, Mom. It's so much better than that old apartment, right? Just relax. Enjoy yourself. You've earned it. He thought he was giving me a gift. The gift of irrelevance. He had moved me from the center of his story to the margins of his new, glossy life. And he was so proud of himself for doing it. The first rail crack came with the holidays. It was their first Thanksgiving in the new house. Sophia's family was coming. Her parents, her brother, his wife. I was excited. I love cooking for a crowd. I offered to make the turkey, the way my mother taught me, with herbed butter under the skin.
The pies.
The stuffing. Sophia listened patiently. Then she said, "That's so sweet of you, Anya. But my mother is." You don't notice a single speck, but let it gather, and soon everything feels grimy. It was the way she'd reorganized the kitchen after I'd cooked, putting my wooden spoon in a different drawer, wiping down counters I had just cleaned, as if my cleaning wasn't quite thorough. It was these suggestions. Anya, at my mother's yoga group, they say sitting for too long is terrible for circulation. Maybe you should take a walk. Anya, that television program seems a bit sensational. There's a lovely documentary on the Nature Channel. It was the conversations at dinner. David would talk about his work, about a big deal he'd closed, a presentation he'd nailed. His eyes would shine. Sophia would listen, adoring. Then she'd turn to me. "And what did you do today, Anya?" What did I do? I folded laundry. I watched the birds at the feeder. I mended a tear in David's coat. I thought about Michael. I waited for them to come home. Oh, not much, I'd say. Just puttered around. She'd nod, a kind, pitying nod, as if my puttering was a cute, slightly sad hobby.
The worst part was David.
My David. He didn't see the dust gathering.
Or he chose not to.
When I tried once to mention that I felt a bit lost in the big house, he patted my shoulder. You'll get used to it, Mom. It's so much better than that old apartment, right? Just relax. Enjoy yourself. You've earned it. He thought he was giving me a gift. The gift of irrelevance. He had moved me from the center of his story to the margins of his new, glossy life. And he was so proud of himself for doing it. The first rail crack came with the holidays. It was their first Thanksgiving in the new house. Sophia's family was coming. Her parents, her brother, his wife. I was excited. I love cooking for a crowd. I offered to make the turkey, the way my mother taught me, with herbed butter under the skin.
The pies.
The stuffing. Sophia listened patiently. Then she said, "That's so sweet of you, Anya. But my mother is." Bringing the turkey. She has it catered from this amazing organic farm. And I've ordered the pies from a fabulous patisserie. Maybe you could make a vegetable side dish. A vegetable side dish. I stood in my son's magnificent kitchen with its double oven and granite counters, and I was reduced to a side dish. Literally and figuratively. "Of course," I said softly. "Whatever you like." The day arrived. Sophia's family was lovely in a formal, distant way. They talked about stocks and vacations in Tuscany and the best schools for future grandchildren. I tried to join in, but my words felt clumsy. My simple green beans with almonds sat on the table, mostly untouched, next to the fashionable roasted Brussels sprouts with pomegranate. David held court. He was talking about his latest promotion, the big bonus, the new car he was thinking of buying. "It's incredible," he said, laughing. "If you told me 10 years ago I'd be here, I wouldn't have believed it. I just kept my head down, worked harder than anyone else, took risks. You have to bet on yourself, right?" Her father clapped him on the back. "That's the spirit, son. Self-made man." I sat there, my fork resting on my plate. I looked at my son's proud, smiling face. Self-made. The word hung in the air, sharp and wrong. It cut right through me. Who paid for the textbooks the scholarships didn't cover? Who stayed up until 2 a.m. stitching sequins on a costume for the school play so he wouldn't feel left out? Who swallowed her own grief every day to make sure his childhood still had joy? Who was the self that was made? It wasn't just him.
A part of me was in that foundation.
But that part had been quietly buried under the new landscaping. I didn't say anything. I just swallowed the bite of food in my mouth. It tasted like nothing. The puttering got worse. My world became the sunroom and the kitchen, and even the kitchen felt less and less like mine. Sophia hired a weekly cleaning service. So, you don't have to bother Anya, she said. It was another piece of my purpose, gently taken away. I felt myself becoming a ghost in my son's house. I walked softly. I tried to make myself small. I stopped offering to cook. I ate my meals early before they came home, to avoid the strained silence at the dinner table. David was traveling more for work. When he was home, he was tired, distracted, on his phone. The breaking point was so quiet. It wasn't a slammed door. It was a click. David had been away for 2 weeks. A big business trip. He was coming back, and Sophia was planning a welcome-home dinner. Just the three of us. She was in the kitchen, arranging flowers, buzzing with a nervous energy. "Anya," she said, not looking up from the lilies. "Would you mind terribly having dinner in your room tonight? I've ordered from that fancy Italian place David loves, and I want it to be special. Just the two of us.
You understand, right? We need some couple time."
I stood in the doorway. I understood. Oh, I understood perfectly. I was no longer just a side dish. I was an interruption. A piece of clutter in the perfect tableau of their marriage. "Of course," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "I understand." I went to my sunroom. I watched the sky turn from blue to pink to deep purple. I heard David's car in the driveway. I heard their happy greetings, their laughter floating down the hall. I smelled the delicious food. I sat in the dark on my bed and ate a bowl of cold cereal. The next morning, David popped his head into the sunroom. He looked happy, relaxed. "Hey, Mom. Did you sleep okay? Sophia said you had a headache and ate early last night. Feeling better?" He had accepted her story without a second thought. He didn't see the lie. He didn't feel the hurt radiating from me like a cold stone.
He was so far away from me now.
In that moment, the distance felt infinite. "I'm fine," I said. "Just fine." A week later, it happened. The moment that started this whole story. I was in the living room, carefully dusting the framed photos on the mantel. There were pictures of David and Sophia's wedding. Pictures of them on trips. A few of David as a child. I was lost in the memory of one. A picture of him, age 7, missing 2 front teeth, holding a wonky clay pot he'd made for me. "To Mom, the best potter in the world," it said. He'd written Potter instead of Mother.
I was smiling at it.
Sophia walked in. She had that look. We need to talk, look. She sat on the edge of the sofa, her posture perfect. "Anya," she began. "We need to talk about the future." I put the photo down. "Okay. David and we've been thinking. We're planning to start a family soon." She smiled, a genuine, excited smile. "And this house with a baby, we're going to need to rethink the space. The sunroom. We were thinking it would make a perfect nursery. All that light." My heart sank, but I kept my face calm. "I see." "And," she continued, her voice softening into that practiced, gentle tone, "we think for everyone's happiness, it might be time for you to have your own space again. A place that's all yours. Where you can have your own things, your own routine. There's a lovely assisted living community just a few miles away. We've looked at it. It has activities, friends your own age. It's not a nursing home. It's very nice."
Assisted living.
The words were like a label.
Old.
Dependent. In the way. "David thinks this is a good idea?" I asked, my throat tight. "He wants what's best for you," she said, which wasn't an answer. "He's worked so hard for this life, Anya. For our future. We just want everything to be right for the next chapter." There it was. The next chapter. My part in the book was over. The kindly, fading character who makes her exit so the hero and his new family can thrive. I looked at her. This young woman who held my son's heart. To me that my season in your daily life has come to a natural end. A son makes a home with his wife. That is how it should be. I came here holding on to an old promise, the one you made at our kitchen table. I realize now that promise was made by a boy to his mother. The man you have become has different promises to keep, to your new family. And that is also how it should be. I am not going to the place Sophia suggested. That is not my path.
Do not worry about me. I have a little money saved for my sewing.
I have friends. I will find a small place and I will be just fine. My love for you is absolute and forever. It does not depend on living under the same roof. It is in every stitch of the quilt on your bed, in the memory of every star we tried to find with that old telescope, in every silent wish I ever made for your happiness. I am so very proud of the man you are. You have worked so hard. You have built a beautiful success. Just know, my son, that every great building needs a strong, invisible foundation. Long before the shiny windows and the beautiful doors, there is deep, unseen work in the dark earth. That was my work, and I did it with more love than you will ever know. With all my heart.
Mom.
I left the letter on his pillow. I took my boxes, my sewing machine, and my mother's quilt. I called a taxi. As I closed the front door of the big, beautiful house for the last time, I didn't look back.
There was no more sadness.
There was a strange, empty peace. Living with Martha was a blessing. It was noisy, chaotic, full of life. She had grandchildren visiting, her book club met there, the TV was always on. It was the opposite of the quiet, careful atmosphere of my son's house. I started sewing again, not out of necessity, but for joy. I made a christening gown for Martha's new granddaughter. I felt the purpose returning to my hands. 2 days after I left, David called. His voice was frantic, confused. Mom, where are you? The letter. Sophia said.
What's
happening? I'm safe, David. I'm at Martha's. Why would you just leave like that?
We need to talk about this.
This isn't what I wanted. Isn't it? I asked gently. David, did you want me to live in the sunroom-turned-nursery? Did you want me to eat alone in my room while you and your wife celebrated? Did you want me to become a ghost? There was a long silence on the other end. I could hear his breath. I could almost hear him thinking, really thinking, for the first time in years. She said you'd be happier, he started, but his voice trailed off. David, I said softly, look at your life. Look at your beautiful home, your amazing career, your wonderful wife. You did that. You earned it. You should be proud. But look closely at the foundation and tell me what you see. I hung up then, not out of anger, but to let the word settle. He didn't call back for a week. When he did, his voice was different, thicker, rougher. Mom, he said, can I come see you? Just me. He came to Martha's condo. He looked younger somehow. Or maybe just more like my boy again. The slick confidence was gone. In its place was a bewildered pain. We sat at Martha's small kitchen table. It reminded me of our old one. I read your letter, he said, staring at his hands. I've read it every day. The deep, unseen work in the dark earth. He looked up, his eyes shining. Mom.
I didn't see it.
I was so busy building upwards, I never looked down. I never thought about what I was building on. His voice broke. Sophia showed me the brochures for the retirement community. She said it was all settled. I just nodded. I was tired from a trip. I thought, it's nice. She'll have friends. I didn't think about you being forced out of your home. My home. Our home. I didn't think about you hearing it from her, not from me. I failed you. He cried then. Big, quiet sobs that shook his shoulders. I reached across the table and took his hands, just like he'd taken mine all those years ago before college. You didn't fail, I whispered. You just forgot to look. And I let myself become easy to forget. I made myself small to fit into your new world. That was my mistake. It's not a nursery, he blurted out. Sophia isn't pregnant. Not yet. That was just a story. A reason. The last piece of the puzzle clicked into place. It wasn't about a baby.
It was just about me.
My presence. My otherness. The knowledge didn't hurt as much as I thought it would. It just was. I love her, Mom, he said, desperate. But this, what she did, what I allowed. You have a marriage to tend to, David, I said. That is your work now.
Not me.
You don't need to choose. I release you from that old promise. It was a child's promise. It has been fulfilled in 1,000 ways you don't even see. We talked for hours. He asked questions. Real questions. About the years after Dad died. About the cost of the telescope. About the bus rides. About the loneliness. He listened. He saw the work in the dark earth. And for the first time, he praised not his own success, but the foundation that made it possible. That was a year ago. I live in a small apartment now, not far from Martha. It has 2 rooms and a view of a noisy, leafy street. I can hear children playing. I have my things around me. My photos. My mother's quilt on my own bed. My sewing machine by the window. David comes to see me every Sunday. Just him. We have tea. We talk. Sometimes we just sit in a comfortable silence that no longer feels like distance, but like peace. He tells me about work, but he also asks my advice. He helped me build a website for my sewing. I take orders for baby quilts and special occasion dresses now. It's my little business. My success. He and Sophia are still together. They are in counseling. He told her in no uncertain terms that I am his mother and I will always be a part of his life, but on terms that respect us all. It is a work in progress. I am cordial with her. I will never be her friend, but I can be her husband's mother. For David's sake, and for the sake of the grandchildren I hope to meet one day, I keep the door to my heart open, even if just a crack. The lesson I learned is not about blame. It's not about ungrateful children or wicked daughters-in-law. Those are just easy stories. The real lesson is about visibility. We must make our love visible. We must speak our sacrifices, not as a debt to be collected, but as a story to be honored. And we must see the love that holds us up, even when it's quiet, even when it's in the dark earth. David sees me now, not as the woman in the sunroom, but as the woman who was the whole world for a little boy. And I see him, not as the self-made man, but as the beautiful, complex person whose roots are forever entwined with mine. He praised his success. And now, finally, he understands the source of his strength. And in that understanding, I have found my own kind of success. A quiet home, a peaceful heart, a son who visits, not out of duty, but out of love, and with clear eyes. And that is enough. That is more than enough.